communication subfields are public relations, advertising, electronic media, and communication studies. So it's a pretty broad overview of a bunch of different communication functions within society.
One of the longest kind of ongoing trends in research in this field is looking at effects, especially when you're talking about the mass communication part of things. So when you're talking about media, such as news media, entertainment media, movies, TV, things like that. And to some extent when you're talking about also advertising and public relations. The interest is in finding out what does it do to people to view certain types of ads, or to play certain types of video games, or to watch certain kinds of TV shows. So a lot of the research has been focused in that way, looking at what effects media has on us.
In terms of public relations and advertising, a lot of times it is how to craft a better message, how to persuade people in a more interesting or effective way. Sometimes it is which media deliver a message, a certain type of message, correctly or effectively.
Also, a lot of the research looks at how people use communication media and media tools. So for instance, I think at this point, we all use social media in some way, things like Facebook, things like Twitter. So a lot of research looks at why. Why do we use those media? How do they help us connect with people and communicate with people? And what do they do for us that makes us keep using them? A lot of people talk about things like Facebook, especially like they're addicted to them. I couldn't quit Facebook, I need it, I need to check it. And a lot of researchers are looking more deeply into things like that perceived need to communicate with people. Why do we need to be on the computer on Facebook all the time when there are people all around? And we could walk into their office or have lunch with them instead. So that's what a lot of research in the field is trying to figure out, why we use these communications tools and what they do for us.
Student research paper in communications can take on a variety of different methods and answer different questions. Depending on what question you're interested in is the method you would choose to answer. So typical student research papers in communications are content analyses, where you look at a certain type of media content and look for different themes. They can also be surveys about how people respond to media, what they think about messages, what they think about media, what they think about your ad. And they can also be experiments where you show people different examples of something, so different ads or different maybe slogans that you've developed for a PR campaign, and have them respond to each of those and then talk about the differences between each of the things that you've shown to somebody.
Students research a variety of things. I encourage them to research things that are interesting to them, obviously, because people feel more of a connection. So I've had students research communication topics that are very pertinent to their generation, so texting and use of smartphones and things like that, which I always find really interesting. I've had students research products or brands that they particularly like, and so I think that those tend to be the most popular issues. It's kind of taking those common things or things that we're very familiar with and looking at them in a new way. Major journals are Journalism and Mass Communication Quarterly, in the PR field specifically, which are the journals that I mostly look at, Public Relations Review, Journal of Public Relations Research, Public Relations Inquiry are the three main journals. And that's just in public relations, so there are certainly advertising journals and journals that focus more on human communication, and then there are even regional journals. I think there's an Ohio Communication Journal, for instance, and similarly in different places.
Our flagship journal in communication is the Journal of Communication, and that is published through the International Communication Association. Electronic media might look at the Journal of Broadcasting and Electronic Media. Students in Comm Studies or interested in Comm Studies might look more at communication research or human communication research. Those are two big journals there.
Primarily we see that some standard research methods such as survey research is happening as far as from a quantitative perspective. Those papers are shorter just because of their nature. In fact, I would say 15 to 18 pages is about standard for a quantitative paper, especially if the statistics are more basic, if it's not a significantly advanced kind of statistical analysis. In qualitative research, such as in-depth interviews, focus groups, things like that, those papers run a lot longer, 20 to 25 pages, sometimes more.
I would say a traditional study where you're doing a survey or doing experiment and reporting results and a literature review along with that will probably take the 20 to those 30 pages.
I think that one of the challenges that communication researchers have, ironically, is communicating their message in a way that is efficient, and that because the qualitative evidence especially takes up so much room, you're in a qualitative methods paper, your results could take up 10 to 12 pages. So you're really challenged to fit everything else in maybe about another 10 pages to try to keep it in a reasonable number.
Any kind of sort of extracurricular accomplishment is helpful on a resume, even if you're not going to go into academics, if you're not going to go to grad school, if you're not sure you're going to grad school. And it shows both that you've taken some extra time to learn about something that you're interested in, but also that you're capable of putting together some research and getting it published. So for students, it's a resume builder either for a more sort of traditional job after 4 years, or if you're going on to undergraduate school. A student research paper to me is excellent when it goes beyond sort of the basic ideas that have been talked about in class. That there's an interest or curiosity in terms of investigating something that the student found interesting, and certainly that would be based on something we talked about in class, but it shouldn't just focus on sort of putting two ideas in class together and that's it. It's thinking about what that means or how that can impact people or how that can impact the media industry, for example. So going beyond class, coming up with a thesis statement that is interesting, that is original, that engages the reader and gets the reader thinking about stuff is also very helpful.
I've always kind of seen research as a way to look at something in a different way, from a different angle or a different perspective. And so when I see students who are able to do that, to me that shows kind of that one step up, that people are able to perhaps apply a different theory to a certain question that hasn't been approached from that way before. I can give you an example. One of our senior students who is a major in both Comm studies and in public relations is doing an independent study project where she's bringing a theory from the organizational communication literature on the work-life balance, the balance that we have as employees between our work and our private life, and she's applying that to public relations professionals and their use of social media. And so to me that really showed kind of this recognition of interdisciplinarity and kind of crossover between different fields. It's not just that you learn science things in your science classes and public relations things in your public relations classes, that you see that there can be some kind of overlap between those. I think you have to love what you're doing. And that you, whether it's research or whether it's working in the field, it has to be something that is really interesting to you, something that you want to read about more. Whether you're interested in the academic side and you want to read more journal articles, or whether you're interested in the practice of public relations or advertising and you get really kind of geeked out reading the journals from the advertising and public relations industry, the trade magazines. So I think that those are the people who really succeed in communications, or the people who are really interested in the practice and in the academic side of it, and who want to learn more about it.
In terms of succeeding in communication, in any of the fields that we talk about in our department or teach about, public relations, advertising, electronic media, they are very competitive fields. So to succeed, you have to show some initiative besides just getting a degree, which is important. So usually there's internships involved with that. Usually there's, again, putting together a research paper, getting that published, or going out, getting that presented at another conference, an academic conference. In terms of succeeding in the field, if you're interested in going into grad school and getting your PhD and becoming a communications professor, it's the ability to find something that just absolutely interests you and you do not want to stop learning about or talking about. And for me, that ended up being media psychology and why it is that people want to use media all the time. So in terms of succeeding professionally, it is a matter of showing that extra initiative besides getting your degree. And in terms of succeeding academically, it's more about finding the question that you want to answer and just going after that and trying to answer it.